Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel Shilpa Data Insights.
How exactly a beginner will start their journey. So, one or two mistakes that you see that people who are preparing for this role are making it frequently. What would you recommend? What kind of project they should pick up to be a, like, let's say, an expert to showcase that project? So, what thing you think that they should put it in resume and what they should not put in resume?
Make sure you are giving a production level explanation of that project. For example, once your results are available, metrics are available.
For a person who has just get started, maybe within 5 years, and after 5 years, what could be an expected salary that they have?
And welcome back to my channel Shilpa Data Insights. In today's podcast, we are inviting one special guest who is a data scientist in one renowned company, and she has a decade years of experience. She's working as a VP in data scientist and in Citicorp. So in this particular podcast, we will be covering a lot of things like the career journey that she had, how she became a data scientist, and what should be the interview strategy for a beginner who want to be in data scientist, and how AI is evolving and is playing a role in data science. If you are a beginner and if you want to be in the data science role, this video is for you. So stay tuned and let's get started with today's video. Welcoming Nishtha Jain.
Hi, Nishtha Jain. Thank you so much for joining our podcast. And I'm really delighted to have you on board in this particular podcast. I'm quite sure the audience will love this podcast because we will be covering a wide range of things. So let's get started. I would like you to introduce yourself to the audience so that our audience can know you better.
Yeah. Hi, Shilpa. So, first of all, thanks for having me here. I'm quite excited about this podcast. And about me, my journey, it's more like I have more than 11 years of experience in the field of data science. And education wise, I've completed my, graduation in computer science and MTech in data science from BITS Pilani. Talking about the 11 years journey, I started my career I joined Sintel company as a fresher. There I was directly tagged to the data science team. So since then, from the very beginning, I have been in this whole data science world. But it's been quite an interesting journey because 11 years back, things were not that structured in data science field the way it is today. So in that sense, it's been quite evolving journey because today you just Google, if you Google about how to become a data scientist, you'll find so many articles around roadmap to become a data scientist, But 11 years back, it wasn't that structured. So yeah, I think it's good to see this whole transition in this field, how it has evolved. So yeah, that's currently, yeah. Currently, I'm working in Citicorp. So yeah, and we are mostly focusing on the latest tech. So it's good to work on that.
Okay, so you started with your MTech in data science. So, what exactly triggered you to take that MTech course in data science? Because back then it was not so popular, people would not know about it. But what exactly had that in your mind?
Yeah, so my case is slightly different. So I did MTech once. So when I started my career, I only completed my graduation in computer science at that time, and then I was directly tagged to data science team. So first couple of years as fresher, I was just figuring out if I really I'm interested in this field or not. And once I was like, pretty sure about this fact, I then formalized my, whole experience with MTech, doing the MTech, and also I joined the course, I think, after I was already in this field. But when you say what really triggered me, I think initially, when I started 11 years back, at that time, even in the beginning, it wasn't very even clear, what is data science, what are we really doing, because it was such a new field. I would, my manager in Centel, I still remember few incidents around that where I was very new to statistics and all, because I was graduate from computer science. So I remember I was just sharing some results with him, casually, and a very small incident, but I happened to just, mention that a bit of statistical thing that, I think we can accept the null hypothesis. And he's a PhD in statistics, so he very calmly corrected me, saying that, oh, we don't accept null hypothesis, we just fail to reject it. Now, both of these statements sound so similar, because if we are not rejecting it, we are accepting it, right? So then I, later on went and Googled such this thing, and slowly, I became more curious about the subject around statistics, how meaningful that small, very small correction was, how deep that statement was. And I think such small incidents made me very confident that I want to stay in this. I was very curious about this field overall. And then I formalized my education in, data science, doing MTech. So yeah, when I did this, I was already working in this field. So it was much easier to, do the MTech and all.
Okay, that's great. That's a great journey, I would say, that you actually landed up into data science thing. So if someone is a beginner right now, right, there's so much of hype of data science now. It's AI is also coming, but data science will remain, it seems. So how exactly a beginner will start their journey? What exactly they are going to learn? Because there's so many resources, people may get confused, right? So if you can give them a direction, how to start with it.
Yeah, so someone who is, just starting in data science, since a lot of things have changed over years, because this, field is evolving at a very rapid pace. Firstly, basics are non-negotiable, whether you talk about it today or maybe even few years later. I think basics are non-negotiable. So that is one part to start with. But having said that, in current times, it's very important for anyone who is planning to join, planning to start in this field, data science field. It's very important to understand that there's a very big shift happening. Earlier, we were building models only. So that was mainly, data scientists working around as a project. But now the shift is towards building systems that are using models. So we are not just building models, but there are also a lot of things that are happening where we are building systems that are using pre-built models, like we talk about LLMs and all, right? So this is a very big shift happening, and under this whole transition, this is where the, you might have heard about topics like RAG, Agentic AI, multi-model systems, multi-agent systems, evaluation-driven framework. So all these things do come under this whole shift that is happening. So, for example, when we even talk about RAG now, it's not just about generative. We are not just concerned about generative tasks now. We also take into consideration what is the retrieval quality, about the context management, hallucination control. So all these things, matter. Also, when we talk about agentic AI, we now have systems that plan, reason, and also, execute the workflows altogether. So it's a very big change that's happening from only building models to building systems that use models. So anyone who is joining as a beginner need to really understand that, starting from the basics and slowly, reaching this point of, this whole latest technology is very important, because expectations are now quite high because the level of competition we have in this field. So
That's
yeah,
true.
that's something I think to consider.
That's true. Competition has become very high because demand is high and people are actually chasing this out. So, one or two mistakes that you see that people who are preparing for this role are making it frequently? What would you advise them? What mistakes are making and what exactly to avoid it?
Yeah, so I think it's what I generally see when I even interview candidates who have recently maybe joined this whole journey of data science. They directly jump into this whole Gen AI world, but it is very important that there is even if the JD that is being shared to you, for the job description, even if it highlights that the core requirement is Gen AI, but it's an unsaid rule that basics are important. We can't skip those, and because even when you're evaluating the model, you again land up to statistics. You try to evaluate using those statistical methods. So it's very important that to understand that basics are non-negotiable. At some point, we will, the anyone who is taking the interview would still be okay if you don't know one of the trending topics. It's still fine because everyone is learning, and things are evolving at such a rapid pace that it's very normal to not know one or two topics around what's coming in the field newly. Even we are learning. Even 11 years I have completed 11 years in this field and I'm still learning. So it's pretty normal. Companies are totally mentally ready for this part. But having said that, if someone doesn't know basics, if I ask someone what is F1 score, what is precision recall, and they get confused there, then that is like a big red flag for someone who is interviewing. It's a clear rejection criteria. So I think that is one thing. And also people, a lot of candidates ask me that is statistics even relevant now? Do we really need? So that is also, as I already answered, that's the base of the whole data science field, and that is what makes it different. So it's very important to learn statistics related to data science. Statistics in itself is a very big subject, but topics related to data science, it's very important, and that will actually give you the feel. You'll feel more confident when you know the underlying formulas. When you're evaluating the model, you'll understand. You'll just not chase the numbers. You'll understand the real problem, get into it, and fix the issues. So yeah, that's important.
Okay. So can basically a person who is not in IT and have graduated can become a data scientist in a fresher role?
Yeah, so see, it's very much possible, but it would require extra efforts. Because when I say, I look at data science as, let's say, it has three main pillars. One is statistics, which even when I joined, I didn't know. I was a computer science graduate, so you can learn it. There are a lot of articles around it, online content around it. Then there's a second big pillar, which is coding, where you need to be, you need to know Python very well because Python is widely used here. There are also R and all those tools, but now something that is widely used is Python. So I think that's good. Then the third pillar is data analysis skills. Now that is something you develop over time, where you go through the project, understand it, read a lot about, how the modeling works and all, how you evaluate, and then you go back, fix things in the data. So that is something. But I think the major, when we say non-tech, the major thing someone should, fill the gap is of coding and Python and all. And I would say coding for data science is comparatively quite easy. When we talk about Python developers versus someone, because in data science, libraries are pre-built. We import the libraries, we build the whole, but at the same time, when we try to scale up the use case, it's important we have core coding principles are followed. So yeah,
Okay.
that is, these three are very important. So anyone, whether it's from non-tech background or tech background, if they achieve these three things in a very well manner, so then it's fine. Yeah.
Okay, so you also covered that coding is also important. So people should not
Yeah, right.
be building models are there, not the coding part.
It's
So for anyone who wants to join this, they also need to build some projects, right? So that they can tell that I have built this project if they are transitioning into it. So there are so many already available online, but people will get confused. So what would you recommend? What kind of project they should pick up to be a, let's say, an expert to showcase that project?
So what I feel is, what generally people, the mistake they do generally while projecting their work is, during interviews is, um, they explain their whole notebook level analysis, like they build the model and how they reach the desired accuracy, metrics. But that is not sufficient. I think whenever, no matter what data you pick up, what problem you pick up, it could be a simple or a very complex one. Make sure you are giving a production level, explanation of that project. For example, once your results are available, metrics are available, did you do the error analysis? How did you, deal with the trade-offs? What kind of monitoring strategy did you implement? All these things are quite important. Like, even what issues did you find and you went back to the data, fixed it to improve your metrics. Explain all those things, like was your data imbalanced or not. So what someone who is actually interviewing, they don't really want to know that, okay, you implemented a model, some X model, classification model, and this is how you got your results. They are, that's a very small portion of the whole project. You can start with how you framed the problem, what was the stakeholders' expectation, how you got around it, what was your final, defined data science use case, then how you implemented it, what you did, what steps you followed in the EDA. So it's a strategy. The way you're thinking about it matters more than just jumping into the answers. So I think that is something more important, no matter what data you pick up, what project you do, but that's more important.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, this is a strategy I think is very important. Otherwise, what you said was absolutely what people are following right now.
And also what happens, what I've noticed generally is, for example, for imbalance data set, they would just follow, they would just mention that data was imbalanced and I implemented this. But if someone gets deep into it, that why this one and why not this strategy, then you need to be very strong in that topic. That obviously the person who is interviewing, once you tell them that, okay, I am implementing this strategy, they'll be like, why not the other one? So you need to know the difference. You need to be very strong. Again, we get back to the same thing, that you need to be very strong in your basics, that why am I doing something? It's not just, we directly implement it, because implementing anything in data science is very easy coding wise, if you ask me. It's just a couple of lines of code, and libraries are pre-built, so it's very easy. But the main expertise lies in your decision making on why are we implementing a certain step in a certain place in the project. So yeah.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. So when people are prepared, they are creating resumes, right? So what thing you think that they should put it in resume and what they should not put in resume?
Yeah. So what I generally feel is giving a lot of details around your project, like in very a lot of resumes, they mention in very detailed manner about what the project is and all. What I generally feel is the person who is taking the interview, they are more interested in what in terms of ML or data science, what different methods you have worked on. And also in the summary, do mention even cases where you have not worked on but you have a good knowledge. Do highlight those areas that I am familiar with XYZ things, because when you already mention everything in detail in the resume, what is left to ask, frankly? So they will obviously go beyond that, stage, and they will add something what that is not mentioned in the resume, because that information you have already provided. So what I feel is, give summary of everything, but do highlight the key areas which are your expertise. Like, you are good at statistics, mention that. You are good at some certain, say, classification technique, mention that. You have implemented LLMs, mention that. But you don't really need to mention which model I implemented, what, because that is what you are going to discuss in interview, right? And that is what the conversation is going to be all about. So keep it simple. You don't need to have it more detailed, but do highlight the key areas what you have worked on so that they get an idea of your expertise level.
Yeah, I really like this because if you say everything in the resume, what is going to be left for the interview,
Yeah.
right? So there should be key pointers, and in those key pointers, the interviewer is going to ask you as well, right? So that is very
Right.
important. Yeah, amazing. So in this field, there's so much of buzz of like you get so much of package and everything. What is the reality of it? Like for a person who has just get started maybe within 5 years, and after 5 years, what could be an expected salary that they have?
So I have seen this recent transition. I'm not. I can't be very confident about this. But what I have noticed recently is maybe in the initial stage you might not get a very high package when you're just joining. But once you are quite experienced in this field, you can demand something of your choice, really. Like you really get paid very well because market, the whole market, they're actually looking for someone who is quite experienced in this field. And I've seen a lot of places where, someone who is joining as a fresher, they kind of get a bit disappointed in that zone, but don't really get disappointed because it just takes few years for you to get into the that experience zone, and then you can really demand very good package. And companies are willing to pay well if you are quite experienced in this field. So it's just about starting in this field, but there's a lot of demand overall.
Okay. So where there will be a demand and supply is less, definitely you will have that positioning in the market.
Yeah.
So one, I would say you have already worked in City Corp. So how is the work-life balance in data science field in big MNCs?
Yeah, so frankly, this field has become very competitive now. So I think if you are quite strong with your basics and you don't have that knowledge gap, because over time in this field you will keep feeling the knowledge gap. That's very normal because things are, as I said, every day there's a new topic coming up. Every day there's a new learning area. So that is going to be very common and very frequent where you will feel the gap. Just fill in that. If you fill in that gap, then you will also not feel that work-life imbalance and all, because things become easier for you to implement. So I think it's but when I talk about from learning angle, if we possibly compare with some other field, here the pace is very high. Even you after 11 years, I also at times feel overwhelmed that, oh my god, there is so much new to still learn now. So every day there is new thing coming up. So that zone is somewhere we can't sit peacefully saying that, okay, I have completed everything of around this field, because every day there's new coming up. And if you're joining this field, be mentally prepared for that you can't halt at some point saying that, okay, I've learned everything now. It's
That's actually
it's a
because with this AI also evolving in such a fast way, like anyone, not even on data science field, anyone who is in 90 now have
yeah.
to keep up the pace with everything.
True, true. So yeah, that's one thing where it does feel overwhelming. But yeah, that's how the market is
Yeah. So
currently.
what do you see with AI? How exactly AI is helping this data science field? Is it making your work easier, or it is becoming more challenging to implement AI because all the companies are pressurizing to use AI right now, right? So
Yeah, so I think AI in your day-to-day work, it's making your job much easier. But at the same time, the expectations are from company that earlier, if you took 5 days for some job, complete it in a day. Okay, so there's not much change in that way because the work is happening faster now. You are being able to deliver very fast, because whether we talk about coding practice, the whole coding part or anything, you can just do it very quickly now because of this. But having said that, it's very important whenever we are taking the help of AI, human monitoring, or you just review this whole thing very strictly, so that because it might go wrong. AI can hallucinate, a lot of things can happen, so that is one part. But overall, if you ask me, I think it is making your job easier. It's just that your role is changing a bit. A lot of people also have this question that is AI replacing data scientists and all. What, at least for now, what I have seen is it's changing your role currently. So as I also mentioned earlier we used to build models. Now we are building systems which are using models. Then we using AI, things are being implemented very fast. So that is one thing, that your role is changing a bit, but not completely replacing. I would say.
Right.
It's just important to upgrade ourselves, upskill ourselves, so that we can, meet this whole expectations of using AI to speed up the work. So that's important.
Right. Very, very well shared, like with the audience, because everyone is fearing that they will lose the job. AI is actually taking our jobs, but that's not the case. You have to think it strategically and put those skill sets to yourself. Okay.
And I'm mainly referring to the data scientist part, where people feel data scientists are getting replaced, because I'm actually working in this field, so I think, talk more on this area itself. That at least in data scientist part, it's not completely replacing; it's changing your role. So that, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So now we will have a quick rapid fire round, right?
Yeah.
So, one underrated and one overrated skill that you think for data science field.
Yeah, here I feel a lot of people think building models, it sounds very fancy that data scientists build models and all, and that's the whole awesome thing. Someone who is just joining data science, they feel that's the main thing, but no, that's just a very small part of the whole process. So that's overrated, I feel. And something that is underrated is actually the whole data, figuring out what is not obvious from the data. So digging into the data and getting all the insights, and something what is messing with your final metrics, doing those iterations of optimizing your model. So this whole data analysis part, it is very underrated, but that's the core part. I think if you start getting that analytical thinking, and that only happens the more you deal with different data sets. So that is very underrated, but that's very important. And when you get into real world, projects, that is what actually is the game changer. Because models are, just two lines of code. You build different models. I'm not saying it's not important. It's very important, and it's important to have that knowledge, but it's very overrated.
Yeah, right. That's true. Now, the second question for the rapid fire is, what is the perk of becoming a data scientist?
So of course, this field is very much in demand. So package wise, of course, that's a very big perk and important one. But if we keep that aside for now, I think someone who really like mathematics and data part, it's like a very nice field for those candidates. I always tell someone who is trying to join, I tell them to first experiment their interest in this field of statistics and all, because it's few people like it a lot, few people just don't like it. They find it very messy, that all these numbers and all. So I always tell them, first experiment. If you are really liking those formulas and stuff like that, then it's a very interesting field for them, and it's you get to innovate a lot here, because this field is so new, not new anymore, but it's evolving so much that you really get to do a lot here. That in that way, I think for any curious mind, it's a very good field.
Okay.
To play around. Yeah.
Yeah. So the third question here for rapid fire is, one or two tip that you can give to the audience to crack any interview of data science.
Yeah, so I think one thing what generally people do, not just from the interview angle, but generally also what they feel is they focus a lot on optimizing the model and focus a lot on metrics and all. But even from interview perspective, and when you're working in real time projects, it's very important that just having good offline metrics is not enough for a data science project to be successful. uh, Imagine you have two models. One has a very good accuracy, like very good metrics, and but it doesn't handle the drift well, data drift well. Whereas you have a slightly less accurate model, but it doesn't, it handles the data drift. It's quite robust and all. So it's always good to choose the model which is slightly less accurate, but works well in the production over the one that is very accurate, very good metrics, but fails when there is data drift. So that difference is very important. Don't always we need to have good metrics, but don't blindly chase the metrics and overcomplicate your model. Also, a lot of big tech companies, they have this simple rule when they're building, because they build big systems around any say area of their company. So when they're building systems, they always focus that instead of having a big complex model, let's have multiple small simple models, do every model doing a small job. That makes your system much more, I would say robust compared to having a big complex model. So these things are very important. And even in your interview, when you are being interviewed, even in that, when you showcase your strategy, you need to, you should also know why you are choosing those, multiple small simple models over a complex one. Because you should think from the aspect that, okay, this model is going into production, so it needs to be ready in that manner, not just on the notebook we are getting good metrics and it's done. So that is important.
That's great. That's great. So we are good with the rapid fire round. Thank you so much for this. And thank you so much for joining this podcast as well. I hope audience would have liked it and have gained some insights related to it. So we'll maybe catch up in our next video, a new podcast someday, and we'll share more insights to the audience. Thank you.
Sure, Shilpa. It was really great connecting, and thanks for the platform. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice talking to you.
Yeah. So thank you so much, audience, for watching this video, and do hit the like button, share this video basically, and subscribe to the channel. Stay tuned, keep learning, and keep growing. Thanks. Thank you so much for watching, and I wish you have a good day.